What's up, NFL fans? Welcome back to another episode of 4 Down Territory. I'm your host, Luke Easterling, alongside Doug Farrar, as always. Doug, let's get right to it. The big issue this week in the NFL, not even anything on the field. 3 Tampa Bay Buccaneers players, 2 current players, 1 former player, suspended 3 games by the NFL for basically misrepresenting their COVID vaccination status. It stemmed from a Tampa Bay Times report into Antonio Brown potentially purchasing and obtaining a fake COVID vaccine card. You know, Edwards is a big part of this defense. Obviously, Antonio Brown's hurt, but he's been a big part of the Bucs offense. It was reported, we heard that kind of after the fact, the league maybe wanted to suspend these guys for even longer than 3 games based on the possible consequences of this action and how it relates to the Aaron Rodgers situation and all of that. Do you think the NFL should have been more stern here, or did they get it right?
I think the NFL should have been more stern, and the NFL didn't want to, because I think when it comes to players lying about their vaccination status, the NFL wants to do what they did to Spygate and burn the tape. Because if you think that these are the only 3 guys who are doing this, I got a bridge to
right,
say.
and Bruce Arians alluded to that this week, right? He said, hey, I hope the NFL doesn't stop looking, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, Brown is Brady's favorite guy. Edwards is the Buccaneers' primary ball hawk in a secondary that's been completely decimated by injury. You run Buckswire, you know this better than I do. They'll both be back. I think each of them should have been suspended for at least the rest of the season. You got these guys running around the facility with Arians, who's a 69-year-old cancer survivor. Offensive consultant Tom Moore is 83. Just because something tragic didn't happen now that they're vaccinated, thank God it didn't, I don't think the punishment should be any less. I think the NFL decided, you know what, we want to nip this in the bud because all sorts of stuff could be coming around down the pike. I think the idea of lying about your vaccination status and potentially infecting other people with COVID, it's unforgivable. I don't know how you retain that trust. I know that Brown and Edwards are both talented players, and that will generally out. But if it were me, I would have a real problem with it. I think the punishments should have been more severe. I understand exactly why they weren't, and it had nothing to do with these particular players.
Yeah, it's really hard to argue with you there, Doug. Arians made it clear when they signed AB that he was basically on a 1-strike deal, right? If he screws up once, he's out of here. He's been a model citizen.
How many times have we heard that before?
Right, yeah, and he said, he's been a model citizen this whole time. Well, now he's not, right? He's not holding up that end of the bargain. Let's see if Arians holds true to that statement. And again, Arians kind of punted the question earlier this week, was like, hey, we'll address it when they get back from the suspension. That tells me they're not going anywhere, personally. But for all the reasons you said, I wouldn't have had a problem with a longer suspension. It would have made plenty of sense to me, especially for Brown, like you said, considering his off-field history. But it does seem like it's trending more towards the fact that the Bucs are going to keep these guys around, and we'll see how that impacts the rest of the league. Like we said, Arians kind of alluding to the fact that the NFL should dig deeper, and I think they will. We're going to move on. We're going to stay in the NFC South, though, because really the big news for a team that didn't play this week was the fact that the Panthers fired offensive coordinator Joe Brady on Sunday. Seemed like Matt Rhule, wanted to run the ball a certain number of times. Brady wasn't hitting that mark. In a league where the best teams are really situation and opponent dependent, something we've talked about on the show multiple times as far as the game plan goes, what does it say about Matt Rhule if this really is the primary reason for canning a guy like Brady?
This is a week after, of course, everyone bashed Frank Reich for not running the ball more against the Bucs defense. Right. Hello. Brady wasn't the one who put together the awful offensive line. He wasn't the one responsible for that quarterback situation where they just, dragged Cam Newton into the rooms and please help us. And he wasn't responsible for Chris McCaffrey getting hurt and out for the rest of the season. McCaffrey's on a volume target anyway on the ground. He's more touches and targets, So if you say, we want to run the ball X number of times a game, that's ridiculous. The Seahawks did that last year. They removed Brian Schottenheimer as offensive coordinator because Pete Carroll wanted to run the ball X number of times a game. Their offense right now should be locked in a shed and set on fire. It's even worse than it was before. Anytime you say, we want to do X number of things, X times a game, no matter the opponent, I mean, can you imagine Bill Belichick ever doing that? Belichick would laugh his face off. So to me, this is about Rhule deciding, I really messed up with the deployment of talent on this offense. I need someone to blame. I'm going to blame this guy. It's simple as that to me.
Yeah, I mean, this is such an ego sport, right? I mean, you kind of have to have one of a certain size to have the confidence and the audacity it takes to play or coach at this level. But that's what it reeks of to me. It's an ego move by Matt Rhule. Obviously, he's the head coach. He can run his ship however he wants. But Joe Brady didn't magically become a terrible play caller. Go back and look what he did at LSU in 19. I know college football is different, but still, his ability to put players in position to make plays is really, really good for that role. And I think it will be shown by the fact that he'll have plenty of suitors now that he's available again, right? And I think the best, whether it's players and coaches working together, the best situations are always when they can collaborate, they can maximize the strengths of themselves and their players. But honestly, it looks like Rhule was more interested in just kind of checking a theoretical box here instead of doing what was actually best for the team schematically. Brady maybe wasn't interested in that approach, and I think that's why he's out.
Very well put. If you're the Bengals, do you say, hey, Joe, come back over here and, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, and let's have an LSU reunion for the rest of the season? That's what
I'd love to see it. Now, moving to one of the most impressive rookies of the year, but let's throw Rookie of the Year out the window because Micah Parsons and the way he has played for the Dallas Cowboys this year, he's already got that locked up. The question now becomes, is he the, linebacker, edge rusher, slot defender, do-it-all guy who can be the best defensive player in the NFL regardless of experience or position?
With all due respect to Aaron Donald, J.C. Jackson, whoever you want to mention, I don't think there's an equivalent defensive player to Parsons and all he's been able to do on the field right now. And Luke, you run draft wire too, so you know this. A guy like Isaiah Simmons comes into the NFL, they want him to do 5 different things, and he struggles for a while. And then they kind of simmer it down and say, okay, do the one thing. And
we all understood that, right? We all kind of were like, it's okay, he'll get there, but they're asking him too much, right?
Parsons comes in, he's got like 5 different moves as an edge rusher that you can't block. As an inside pass rusher and run defender, you can't stop him. There was one play against the Saints where he stopped the Ty Montgomery run where the center and the receiver went up to double team him at linebacker depth. I don't know if I've ever seen that before, where to heck with the guys up front, we have to deal with 11 wherever he is. He caused one of Taysom Hill's interceptions by running 30+ yards downfield with Kenny Stills from the slot, actually lost Stills and was able to recover with speed to deflect the ball so Jaron Kearse can intercept it. I don't know that I've ever seen a defensive rookie be this versatile and this good at this many positions. And I don't know if there's an equivalent player of any experience at any position who's been able to come in and just master all these different roles. So to me, Micah Parsons, forget Defensive Rookie of the Year. That's done. He right now, especially in the second half of the season, he is the best defensive player in the NFL, bar none.
Yeah, and obviously you listed some veterans earlier. I'd throw TJ Watt in there as well with the way he's playing. But, you're not, again, going to get much of an argument from me on this. He was the best defensive player in this draft for me by far, but that was just as an off-ball linebacker. I thought he was that good at that one job, that one position.
That's the insane. He wasn't even a regular pass. He wasn't a regular edge guy in college because they had all those other guys.
Yeah, and because of the injuries, necessity basically is like, hey, you're big, fast, and athletic. Let's put you on the edge and see what happens. And we have seen what happens. And you want to stay away from hyperbole in these situations with rookies, right? We did it with Jamar Chase with his big stretch early in the season. You want to stay away from that, but it's hard not to do that with Parsons because he's made such a rare impact. Like you said, no matter where they line him up, opposing offenses are already having to account for him in such a huge way that I don't think Defensive Player of the Year should be a stretch at all.
And again, to do this as a rookie is just nuts. It doesn't happen. It just doesn't. It takes guys 2 to 3 years to figure out how to do all these things as well. I can't remember an equivalent to this. Just a guy coming into the league and dominating all over the place this quick.
Yeah, especially like we said, being asked to do so many things. It's wild. Now we're going to close up with a simple one, Doug. They have the best record in the NFL, but are the Cardinals the NFL's best team right now?
I think they are. They lost that close game to the Packers, who are currently the NFC second seed, but their win over the Bears. They're the second team in NFL history, 68 Cowboys, to win their first 7 road games each by at least 10 points. That says a lot. Because you think with the Cardinals, they're an indoor team. They need to be, in a
certain set of circumstances, right, to be at their best.
Not true. When Kyler Murray got hurt, they just kept rolling. He's back, and that allows Cliff Kingsbury to dial up whatever crazy stuff he wants. He threw 2 touchdown passes against the Bears on 15 attempts. The run game is quite solid. The receiver group is great with DeAndre Hopkins back in the fold. The defense isn't perfect. It's a little on and off, but incredibly opportunistic. Just ask Andy Dalton and the 4 interceptions he threw. I think they have what it takes to run the table and make a Super Bowl run, and they might turn into the team that nobody wants to face down the stretch. They can win pretty much any way they like. And I don't believe they have an outdoor game remaining on their schedule. But make no mistake, they can go and play bully ball with you too. This is not just, it has to be in a pyramid and, all that stuff. It's not weather dependent. This team can pretty much do it all.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. In order to win in December and win in the playoffs, you've got to be able to win away from home, and you got to be able to do it in many different ways. And, just the fact that they went 2-1 without Murray and Hopkins when they were both injured, I think that says a lot about their ability to do that. Both of those wins with them out were within their division, which is one of the toughest in the league. Obviously, the Panthers' loss looks like a little bit of a fluke right now. But we said it earlier in the season. Defense is strong. They've got playmakers at every level on that side of the ball. The offense is balanced. Murray, obviously one of the most dynamic quarterbacks in the league. Taking the slow and steady approach with his recovery from that ankle injury, I think will pay off down the stretch as well because he'll be full strength. And I think that number one seed in the NFC is theirs to lose.
Yep, I would agree.
All right, well, that does it for us this week. Thanks again for joining us for 4 Down Territory. For Doug Farrar, I'm Luke Easterling, and we'll see you next week.